How good are we as a whole at dealing with and preparing for disasters?
I think that's a great question. I think more and more you see countries preparing ex ante, but the bulk of the response has always been and continues to be sort of an ex post. Over the last 30 years, 95% of the money that's gone into disaster has always been recovery, response, and rescue, as opposed to preparedness. But you see an enormous impact and a difference on countries that are, on the economic conditions that are prepared and versus the ones that don't. So if you look at, from 1980, the number of events has doubled from about 400 to 900, but the size of the economic impact has more than six-fold increase, from less than 75 billion to about 410 billion.
Why is that?
Well, you got a couple of things going on. Firstly, you've got increased urbanization. Secondly, climate change. And thirdly, poorly managed growth. So Nepal is a perfect example. They have one of the big issues there is apparently they have very poor building codes and poor growth in terms of the management. If you look at the developing economies, they are disproportionately hit in terms of the percent of GDP. Look at Thailand. They lost 13% of GDP because of the flood in 2011. And then if you look at countries that are prepared versus countries that are not. So Nepal was, I looked up because I know that Chile has been very aggressive in terms of their preparedness, right? So 2010, they had an 8.8 earthquake. They lost 525 people. Nepal's was 4,000 so far and counting, and that was a 7.8. The Japanese earthquake in 2011 was a 9.0, and that, while it did kill a lot of people, 94% of the people that died was because of the tsunami, not the earthquake. The earthquake was fewer than 900 people. So a lot of countries are really starting to switch into disaster risk. We did a huge a program at Uruguay, where we executed a large transaction where they can protect against, because they mostly are hydropower generated, so electricity is very vulnerable. And so that we did a disaster risk derivative for them, where they are protected up to $450 million if there's droughts and if there's high energy prices. Just last week I was down in Panama helping them with the same thing because they had the same issue. But take a look at Panama. Well-developed city, Panama City, but yet not great drainage system. So if you have a little rainfall, they've got floods. So I think it's fair to say that more and more countries are looking at doing disaster risk. Certainly it's a very big push of the UN. In fact, 2 weeks ago, the G7 announced a fund of $1 billion to try to think about planning. And one of the big issues, of course, you got a couple of things. Firstly, the politics, right? So it's very difficult for a politician to want to put money into planning when they have other things that they can do with the money. So you build a school, build a hospital, or do some kind of disaster risk contingent liability planning. And they always figure it's sort of a moral hazard. Yeah. They figure, okay, if people are going to come, if there's an event, so I'm going to get money. So it's hard. It's always hard in terms of any kind of insurance preparedness because people think it's a waste. So it's really sort of the demonstration effect. So in fact, Chile is a great demonstration, and so now Peru is doing similar things. The same thing with Panama that they see Uruguay. Same thing we're working with Philippines because they see Mexico. So if you see the demonstration effect that yes, there is a benefit by preparing, then you can see more of this. Just give me one last example. In 2011, when Japan had the earthquake, they're the most sophisticated in terms of being prepared, and they have very strict building codes and these early warning signals. The bullet train, because of the early warning signals, shut down instantly. Not one track derailed, one train, not one person got injured, and they had a 9.0 earthquake. So that's the power of being prepared.